For us to get into the state of the nation. Just a quick reintroduction of the panel that we have here this morning. We are joined by Honorable Danita Gatti, who's a legislator. We also have Honorable Gladys Boss-Sholei, who is a woman rep Uasin Gishu County. We have Kevin Osido, who is the Director Governance, County Governance Watch, and Javas Bigambo, who is a political strategist, to just have the discussion. Now, I'll also just give you a quick reminder of the question that we asked earlier on. And the question is the cabinet reshuffle going to enhance efficiency in service delivery? Do you think the cabinet reshuffle is going to enhance, service delivery for Kenya? And I'll just look at some of the comments that have come through so far and keep them coming. I'll try read them as much as we can as we go on with the show. We have Matthew Ondoro, who says, I like the way those CSs have started working. They should deliver to wananchi with speed. IDs, passport in one day. This was said by CS Matiang'i that soon we're going to have your passports and IDs, processed in a day. We also have Kipchum Joshua, who says someone will sleep on the job again as soon as salary protrudes from their pockets. We know them. No change in Kenya. Not very expectant right there. We have Robert Otori, who says nothing is going to happen. It has been reshuffled since 1990, but the economy gets worse instead. Keep your comments coming. I'll read them as we go along. But that's the basis of our discussion this morning. I think, let me start from this end, although I know that you already mentioned, Madam Gladys Boss-Sholei, that you are happy. You're proud of the president right now with that cabinet reshuffle. And tell us why.
Because, and if you look at what I've said publicly, is I was getting worried. I kept saying we have to stop about talking about BBI. We're talking about BBI, and BBI is all about, I call it the Book of Lamentations. It says all the problems Kenyans have. It says we have chronic unemployment. It says that the economy and the political system is near collapse, and it's a catastrophe in the making. Those are the words of BBI. So now, so when it says that, now when I see the president taking actual action and making deliberate steps to ensure that he cures that. So now he has addressed the problem of agriculture. He's trying to address the problem of SMEs, giving them a fund so that they can be able to borrow money at 9%, which means that will churn the economy. It will create employment. It will boost business. And so it's an economic stimulus kind of speech that I looked at it.
Allow me to interrupt you, Madam Sholei. And the question here being, the BBI is not entirely bad by virtue of the fact that there are certain elements there that also help us for posterity. And one of those being, for instance, the acrimonious elections that we always have. That's something that needs to be addressed. Because fine, we may deal with the farmers right now, but what happens when it comes to election time? If, for instance, the IEBC is not well constituted. There's also the element of tax breaks for the youth. Should they not, once they start businesses, those are good elements of the BBI. So as much as we might want to say that the BBI is all political, there are certain elements that we don't want to ignore.
No, I'm not saying that the content of the BBI, what they've put there, even the problems they have listed, the lamentations are true. It's things that we all know as Kenyans. And then when it talks about, when you talk about the elections and so on, my position has always been, everything that the BBI has said has aligned ministry to deal with it. If it is inclusivity, we have the National Gender and Equality Commission. We have the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. We have the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. It's supposed to do that. If it is youth problems, we have a whole ministry of youth with PSS and CASS. They are supposed to do their job. So if each ministry looked at the BBI report and undertook to perform its job, then we will not have any problems in this country. And that's why I want us to move to implementation. Let us stop talking about our problems. Can we talk about our solutions? And that is why I said I'm very proud of the president, which has not happened in a long time because I'd been disappointed. But I'm very proud of the president, and thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
That when I look at what he has done, he has spoken to the things that wananchi care about. When he cancelled the NHIF rules, yes, he looked at them. That is something that speaks to the Wanjiko. When we say that we are guaranteeing a loan guarantee, a guaranteed loan fund, that is speaking to the wananchi. Putting the interest rates at 9%, that is speaking to the wananchi. Looking at it and saying that the youth are supposed to be in ICT, because the youth docket should be in ICT, because ICT works with the youth. You can see he's talking about small-scale farmers. He's talking about guaranteed pricing formula for farmers. Now he's talking.
Okay.
Now he's talking.
Let's allow Honorable Danita Gatti to also just weigh in. What's your take on the cabinet reshuffle? Do you feel that this is a positive injection to Kenya moving in the right direction?
Thank you very much. And so again, glad to be here and Happy New Year. And once again, allow me to really pick up from where my colleague, Honorable Sholei, has said that for me, I think this is one of the best moves that the president has made. I personally think that is a completely, it is the face of Kenya. If you look at the composition now, it is extremely the face of Kenya that we've been really yearning for in this country. And I think that the president is in the right track. Completely right track. Because every region of this country is fairly represented somehow. The 21, and again, look at the gender. I mean, who wouldn't be happy about that? The women of Kenya are happy. Finally, we have actually reached even the threshold, the threshold that we are talking about. That means basically that the president is completely, making women proud.
This is a good year.
He's living according to what the Constitution, requires. If you have a cabinet of 21, and you find out of those 21, we have 7. That is completely the gender, parity kind of we've been talking about. We are still in the 1/3, in the third, but we have moved. That means that the president is extreme. And allow me to really thank the president because he has really tried, and I'm very sure that the women of this country are extremely happy. What I want to see, and as we move forward, is because I do disability work, it will reach a point, and I hope that it reaches a point in this country that the president will say in this substantive portfolio ministry, we can have a person with disability, or a woman with disability, or a man with disability, or a youth heading a department, heading a ministry like gender or labor, because labor issues are actually, disability issues are in labor. If we could even have had a person with disability, a woman, out of these 7 that have the president has constituted, out of those 7, can we have a woman looking at the portfolio that is actually labor? Because disability issues are huge, and they're huge. Many. Okay. And it is fine. If you look at the PS that are there, we have we have quite a number of women who are actually sitting there. And again, now I'm saying, when we move forward, and we'll try to advise the president, I do disability work a lot, and we'll try to look at inclusion. And inclusivity is what BBI is talking about. Mheshimiwa Sholei is talking about, she supports BBI. You can see, you can hear, she supports BBI because BBI identifies the problems that we have. And I'm happy that she supports BBI. Because BBI now, once we have identified our problems, what are the issues? Okay. Now that is why we are moving into trying to address and trying to fill the gaps that exist. And that is why the president is in BBI. That's why the president
we'll come back to BBI. But I'm hoping we don't.
And he's actually helping us to fix these problems.
We'll come to that. And let me come to you, Javas Bigambo. It seems the ladies are very excited about the cabinet reshuffle, mainly because of the 2/3 gender bill, being, or rather the 2/3 gender parity being represented. And let me also just mention that our panel today is actually 50-50, which is a good thing. So.
Good job.
So Javas, are you as excited as the ladies with the cabinet reshuffle?
See, I tried joining the choir when I was in primary school. And then the choir master told me to find a place far from the choir and stay there. I'm not gifted
with singing with the choir.
Greatly. So I will not join the chorus. What I want to say is that it is not a question of me being or us being excited about the move of the president. Because when I look at Article 132, sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, when you look at...
sorry to interrupt you. Apparently, we have a bit of a challenge with the sound there. So let me come to you, Kevin. I'll come back to you. We just try and sort out that microphone. Kevin, the excitement with the ladies, you also share. And this is mainly looking at the cabinet reshuffle. Are you as excited as a Kenyan and one who deals with governance at, very closely, looking at the cabinet reshuffle that the president...
Mike, I have very many reasons to be quite excited. And... those reasons really, when I listened to the speech, I was asking myself, where has this gentleman been?
Yes.
Where has His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta been? Because I thought for a minute that probably he has realized that we are moving towards the end of this journey, but what is it that I am leaving behind? Because as they're talking about the women, by the youth, Now we have 7 in the entire list who are below the age of 35. And I think that that is something also to be excited about, because for a long time, young people have been asking, and we have been saying, not that I am a youth today, because I am 37 years old, so by constitution is 18 to 35, but I do a lot of
But I
youth
met
work.
him as a youth.
Yes, yes.
So he's been working.
And we engage on
yes.
a lot of youth issues. And a lot of the work that County Governance Watch does is really working with county governments to put in place action plans and try to drive youth, have youth-friendly policies at the county. So if we are to talk about the kind of context that is being created by the two good honorable ladies, then I think that young people really now have a very good reason to be excited. 2 is that now we also have a separate youth for youth businesses, which is beyond Ministry of Public Service, gender, and youth. So it's in innovation, ICT, and youth. And that is not still enough, because not all young people are basically in ICT, but innovation, yes. And we've had the conversation around now. Having had this cabinet reshuffle, can we therefore move forward to have conducive environments for me to be as innovative as a young person, and then when I get to the level where I want to interact with the ministry, let the ministry also have responsive measures or frameworks that are going to respond to what I am feeling as a young people. Remember that, Michael, in the past, many governments, including this one, have put in place very many programs and projects for the youth which have not been as responsive, including AGPO, Access to Government Procurement Opportunities, which is the 30%, because we have been working with a number of government agencies to look at how many young people are actually benefiting from the tenders, for example.
Allow me to interrupt you, because I'll want us to come to the nitty-gritties of what now should work, because the reshuffle is just really putting heads to make sure that things are working.
So lastly, basically, just to say that the other excitement is that the president has also decided to ensure that the Big Four works, and I think that the people who will be leading the major sectors, health, food security, agriculture, manufacturing, and housing, I think are people who have the wealth of experience and are able to respond to what the expectations of the president are on those Big Four agenda issues.
All right, and I think we're... Jabez?
Yes. Yeah, so I was saying that it is a general legitimate expectation of every Kenyan that the president should execute his mandate as it is, for example, in Article 132 of the Constitution, Sub-Article 2, when you look at Article 129 of the Constitution, there is what we expect of the president. And the president reorganizing his cabinet, it is a standard housekeeping measure in governance, and it is expected. In fact, he has been a bit late in this reorganization. In fact, I think as good practice, it should be done whenever there is a lull in terms of performance, because look back with the benefit of retrospect, Michael. When you look at the Jubilee Manifesto, 2013, when you look at the Big Four agenda after 2017, implementation of that would put Kenya somewhere else on the global map. And so the president is supposed, and excitedly so, put in place a team that can help him execute that. The issue of the 7 women in cabinet, while it is good, I would say that, for example, 36-year-old Thomas Sankara did it much better decades ago, when he said that women have got a special place in governance and the growth of an economy. We must not actually be asking ourselves, why is it that we don't have enough women in positions of power? They are supposed to be there. When you go across counties here, you'll see that it is women who break their backs to make sure that families progress. So women should have a rightful place at the table. And so, thanks to the president, but can we just make it 10 or even 11? That's what we're supposed to be doing. Because they're hardworking, they're brilliant. But the other thing is this, not just that, when you look at Article 54 of the Constitution, let us also get to have persons with disability, not 1, not 2, but also having a pride of place in governance and leadership.
So you agree it is a step in the right direction, and what the president has done should give us
it is a bad thing that it's a step. There's supposed to be steps.
There's supposed to be steps.
All right, it's a step towards the right direction.
All right, Madam Sulay.
But you see, the thing is, I know that you're saying that's what the president's supposed to do, but can you imagine how depressed we were when he was doing nothing?
Yeah.
So we are so excited. It's like a child who was not working hard in school, then suddenly starts working hard. The excitement is high. So let's just, because we also want to encourage him so that he continues on this direction. That is what we've been asking for. So
Mike,
let's encourage him.
I would say that it's fitting what the president has done. Now, we as Kenyans are supposed to put more coal beneath his feet. What is self-evident is here, that the president can work when he decides to work. and that he will...
And should work.
Yes,
And should
and
work.
when he loses his temper, it can be seen by every person.
Yeah.
So we want the president to lose his temper and have his government work and have every person work.
All right. Now, here's the thing. It's not the first time that we have had a tough-talking president. It's not the first time that we have had him crack the whip, so to speak, from that podium. But somewhere down the road, we seem to lose the plot. Because this is not the first time we've had him, talk like he has. So, Honorable Danita Gatti, where do you think, as Kenyans, we kind of lose that momentum? Because it's exciting, it is good, it's a good step. The same way the handshake was a good step. But somewhere down the road, that seemed to be lost.
No, I think what the president needs in this country is a lot of cooperation from everybody. And allow me, first of all, before we even talk about that, and look at the issue, still back to the issue of gender, and look at where the president has placed women. What portfolios has the president placed women? It's one thing to get into cabinet, and it's one thing to have a substantial ministry. Look at foreign affairs. It is huge.
Industrialization.
Look at defense. It is huge. Look at industrialization. It is huge. Look at water and sanitation. Everything that, the portfolios that the president has given completely is a complete honor to women of this country. And so I am saying that what the president requires of us is a lot of cooperation. I think the president should weed off negative energies. I mean, he has no time. The president has completely lived up to the Article 81B of the Constitution of the not more than 2/3 of the same, of appointed or nominated or whatever position should be of the same gender. He has now reached there. And we are seeing that in terms of the 7 out of the 21. Again, what the president requires, and I'm telling you, the president, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, we are in good, we are setting the country forward. What we need now, as you have seen, we are going throughout the country, bringing around the issue of BBI and creating awareness and things like that. We have to support the president. We do not want the president to leave this country, to leave a legacy that he did not leave according to the Constitution. At least within his own cabinet, it should be constitutional. And he's going there. We need to look at other areas where we need to achieve constitutionality, like the parliament and all this. So we are really looking at how we move.
On the issue of BBI, yes, we needed it right with the 9-point agenda, but I think we are seeing lots of bad manners from our politicians. Let's face it. Of course, you can't tell me that Kenyans will have a critical discussion on BBI issues at a political rally. Let's stop deceiving ourselves. It can't work because that's a place where no citizen speaks. It is politicians who speak to the citizens.
Citizens are speaking at BBI. We just came from Kissing the other day.
No, let's face it.
That is the reason why it has devolved to the regions.
What we need, the issue of managing the BBI conversations around this country should be recalibrated. The current approach that has just been taken, in fact, even before the cement is dry, on the gazettement of the steering committee, we see already plans for rallies, even before that is dry.
Actually, we've already had one, and there's one plan for this weekend.
What I'm saying is this. For example, civil society needs to be at the center of these conversations. Ordinary men and women, business people, not in rallies, all right? So conversations are good. Political conversations, creative conversations, etc. It's fine. But what I'm saying is that we need to see how to reorganize these conversations so that ordinary citizens can have a critical voice with this. The other thing is this. When you look at the 3 pillars of the Vision 2030, and remember we're only 10 years to having achieved it, or supposedly to achieve it. And also consider that together with the Big 4 agenda that the president badly wants achieved within the life or the tenancy of his term. All these things together, and then with the desired maturity of BBI, possibly before we get to the next election, it tells you that we don't need to pull in different directions, as already it seems.
Okay, and let me come to you, Madam Sholei. There are several things here that sometimes confuse Kenyans. We have the BBI, rallies and reports and all that's going on. We have the Big 4 agenda, which seems to be thrown sometimes to the back burner. Now we have the cabinet reshuffle. What do you think the president now needs to concentrate on to ensure that now we are on track?
Okay, I think and again, these are things I've said. I kept on saying, forget the BBI, focus on the Big 4, because it took too much of our energy last year. I'm happy that this year, the president has begun the year with focusing on the Big 4, because we had forgotten about the Big 4. In fact, no one was talking about the Big 4. In fact, if you look at the BBI report, there is nowhere where the Big 4 makes it in any discussion at all, which also tells us that people are not aware of the Big 4. The manner in which the consultations and the continuance of the BBI process has taken is the wrong methodology. Javas is very right. It is not for politicians to go and talk to people about BBI. Actually, voter or civic education, you know that very well, Kevin. Kevin has studied that. There is an international standard on the manner in which to conduct civic education and the manner in which to break down a document for the ordinary mwananchi. And the body that has resources and a budget and an entire directorate to do that is IEBC. IEBC as a voter education department. There is no less than 16 civil society groupings, one of which Kevin used to head, that undertake civic education. When I was at IEBC, I hired you and your youth group to be able to go and disseminate the Constitution. Don't you remember that?
Right,
I didn't try to do it myself, but what we did is they worked together. So we got all the civil society groups to work together with IEBC to disseminate and break down the Constitution to the public.
What do you make of the BBI rallies that are taking place? Because Honorable Danita Gatti has spoken on your behalf and said you're in support of BBI. So first of all, I want to know whether you're in support of the BBI. And the method, of course, you've already said is wrong. But what do you make of the political rallies that are there? Because as far as politicians are concerned,
it's a waste of resources.
It's a waste of resources.
It's a waste of resources.
No.
Because the point is, BBI report, go and look at paragraph 1. Paragraph 1 says that the process was the most consultative, in fact, most extensive, it's not even used as wrong English, most extensive
and
consultative process in the history of Kenya. That's what it says. So what are you going to consult again when you said you already consulted? What they should be doing is implementing the BBI report. An implementation of the BBI report, if it is broaden the tax base, let KRA do their job. If it is inclusivity, let the 3 commissions do their job. If it is the public service, they say there's corruption, etc. in the public service. The public service has a whole commission. They should sort out the public service. Yeah, if it is insecurity, we have the National Intelligence Service, we have the National Police Service, we have the Kenya Armed Forces, we have IPOA, we have everything. So why can't those people do their job? When you say the insecurity, so what if you go back to people and they repeat that they have insecurity? Why don't you just fix the insecurity? And for the avoidance of doubt, okay, this has always been my position. The BBI process in itself, the manner in which it was done is an illegality. It is unconstitutional. But the content, it's an illegality insofar as it wants to suggest a referendum. That is not the way to go to a referendum. That is not provided by law because there's only 2 ways of going to a referendum, either by the popular initiative or the parliamentary initiative, no other process. And the second thing is, when the BBI report came out and I read it, I realized, I told people, this is nothing. This is exactly what the problems we already know. There was nothing new the BBI told us. And so the content of the BBI, I have no objection. The content, I have no objection. The process, even spending our money and going to make noise in political
There's
rallies.
nothing like making noise. Let me tell you.
Let me just, I'll finish Danita, then you can have your turn. Yeah, so the thing is, the manner in which they're going about it, because why don't they just, and I have offered that I will do it pro bono, if His Excellency can appoint me, I will prepare an implementation matrix. Yeah. And in that implementation matrix, I can do it in 3 days or 2 days, probably, because I've been starting to do it. And I can tell you, for this department should handle it. For this department should handle it. For the following, a legislation needs to be put in. So we are, but I understand the thinking of the president. I think what he's doing by having these rallies and sending people out to go and continue to talk about BBI, I think he needs to keep the opposition occupied. He wants to keep Raila Odinga busy so that he can leave him alone.
That's even arguable whether we have an opposition.
Michael, it is one thing for Honorable Sholei to say that she supports BBI, the content is good, and at the same time castigate BBI. Because she's saying that we did not do a consultative. What BBI is currently...
You did a consultative process.
We did a consultative process. And it was
but now you're repeating the consultation. And how many times will you go to the public?
What currently we are doing, and I want to refute what my colleague has said, that it is full of politicians and full of everybody. Everybody is in BBI. civil societies in BBI. I was in the civil society. Everywhere where we have come from Kisii, they are members of the civil society, also giving their views. Their youths giving their views. Persons with disabilities are giving their views in terms of looking at, because what we are doing with BBI is dissemination.
All right,
we are currently disseminating the information about,
Okay, so just explain to me.
BBI.
I would like her to explain to us. So what do? You go there, you teach people about BBI, and then they give you their views. Because if you need to teach them, go away, then come back and hear their views. Because if you teach them, you can't be expecting them to give their views on the spot.
And the question,
that's what I'm saying. The methodology is flawed. The methodology is flawed because you should disseminate the information, let people know about BBI. Then we should be getting the BBI. We should be having flyers with different chapters and head notes on each.
But
let people
exactly what is exactly what is
that's what I'm saying.
We have copies of BBI.
No, that's what I'm saying. Disseminate to the people. Go and teach them. Then stop. Then come back to the people now to give you their views. But now you're purportedly disseminating, and then within 2 minutes they give you a response.
All right, and let's come back. And let's come back. Wait. And let's come back. Let's come back to the cabinet.
What is obvious, Michael,
it's a charade.
is that politicians know what they want with this BBI process.
So they already told people.
And they know what they want for the people. The people scarcely know what they want for themselves through this process. That is obvious. And that's why I've argued before that one good thing, and politicians are very cryptic, give it to them. They are always ahead of the ordinary citizens. And that is obvious to all of us who are seeing. So that's why when we say, and look, if we have to be a progressive nation, let us not be averse to conversations. Whether views are opposed or aligned to, no problem. That cocktail, we need to be a melting pot. So when somebody, for example, says that they are not aligned to, should not be castigated. So the whole point is this. That is the very nature and the necessity of conversations that are national. So people should not be profiled and relegated because they are opining in a manner that's contrary to some political alignments. So that's what we should do. The other thing is this. If we can then deliberately, and I like, for example, how passionate Madam Gati is, deliberately also tell people that now, you see, this is the presentation. If we choose this, it has got this consequential effect. If we choose this, then we should not then speak for the people. Then let us have, if it's a question of people petitioning or people having memoranda, then let us see, even a man of publication, that now these civil society organizations have opined like this, etc.
Okay.
Michael, the reason we are doing the regional forums, the regional consultative forums right now is to get the views of the people.
And
that is why you see...
Honorable Gati, are those consultative forums? Because what we have is politicians who come and talk to the, to the populace. That is not consultative. And the question that Madam Shole is putting across is, if consultation was done as per the first paragraph of the BBI, if it was done, why then do we need to consult again? Then let's go to implementation. What exactly are the rallies all about? Isn't it time now for implementation, now that the consultation was done?
But we are disseminating that information to the people, the exact information that, because what we're doing now, because you realize that, honestly, any given process, and that's why you see when you go, for example, in Kisii, for example, or whatever, and you are going to Kakamega and Coast, for example, you are realizing that there could have been
why do we need politicians to be disseminating that information, whereas we have many civil society groups that can actually do that? We should have a copy of that BBI that is available to grandma at home. Right now, we only have it on online platforms, which not everybody has access to. Why do we need politicians to do that?
It is not the politicians ourselves doing that, because that's why we are going down to the people, because the people are speaking. In fact, if you look at 90% of those forums are actually the people speaking. The youth are speaking from the ground. The persons are speaking from the ground.
Right.
And you realize that we are picking actually what are the concerns. If you look, for example, from where I come from the Nyanza region, the Kisii region, you are realizing that in terms of even within the BBI, you are realizing there's so many other issues that are emerging. My community, for example, where I come from the Kuria community, they are actually bringing in the issue of how can BBI help the community that I come from get their own county.
All right, Kevin, you're from county governance. Watch civil society. Are you guys doing what you need to do for us to know what that BBI report is all about?
Yeah, Kevin, just let me, because I'll lose it if we don't follow up what she's saying. She's saying, one, you have said, Mheshimiwa, that you're disseminating what the BBI contains, isn't it? You have confirmed that. Then number two, you're saying you're getting views. So if people have not been disseminated to this information, how are they coming up with views and they have not read it? So that's why I'm saying I think this thing is stage managed. Because how do you disseminate? Then 2 minutes later, somebody gives a written memorandum, which means the person had written the memorandum before you even came to disseminate.
It already had a script.
Yeah, so no, that's what I'm saying. It is illogical. And let's not lie to Kenyans. Can you disseminate first and only do dissemination? Then later, come and hear the views. But the two cannot happen simultaneously.
Kevin.
Wow. Now, Michael, we have agreed in the past that the BBI was important, and I still believe it is. Moving forward, Kenyans should and must not leave this process to the political class. Otherwise, we are going to lose it. I like all the regional processes that are going on. The only thing that I think is a distance to what Kenya needs right now.
Are they processes or political rallies?
Now, I'll take you through, because I've at least been part of...
That's his job. He's
I have
an
been
expert.
part of... I just missed the Kisi, but I'll take you through what is happening.
Go to Kakamega.
Yeah, because I was involved in something, but I'll tell you what's happening. Kenyans are talking. The only challenge that we have is that these copies, and when I printed mine, I came with it, and thank you for acknowledging that this is what government and the task force and the committee should be doing, ensuring that Kenyans have copies down there of the document. So
But
that
you need
then...
someone to summarize it.
Exactly.
And in good English.
Understandable English.
Yeah.
So that...
Let me read for you some of the bad
So that then, Michael, so that then Kenyans are able to pick up the issues from this document and relate it, which is now the work that we are doing. And from County Governance Watch, we are trying to look at the Waki report, the Waki Commission report. What did the Commission talk about? What has NCIC talked about? What did TJRC, the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, speak about? Because all this is work that has already been done, and is work that really needs to be built upon. Recently, and I was looking at the Kenya Gazette, the committee has been given the opportunity to appoint its own chairperson and vice chair, privileged by partisan and non-partisan groupings, forums, and experts to oversee that, form technical working groups as may be required in the achievement of its terms and references, among several others, which are two. This I will not read for the sake of time. I know that the steering committee is in consultation with different Kenyans to be able to put in place the technical working groups. Now, Michael, that is not enough, because that's a small group of people who are going to sit and decide to pick from what is already ongoing and then put it forward. I think that what we need right now, and I've also gone through the memorandum which was developed in Kisi, it is a good document, Michael. It is good, however, there are things that Kenyans already know. Towards the end of last year, together with the religious leaders, NCCK, Catholic, the KCCB, among several others, at Fungamano, we hosted about 468 key leaders from all the 47 counties. Do you know what we did? Asked Kenyans to, in different groups of the 9 issues that BBI had already, the 9 agenda items, go and look at the report, and we made sure that copies were availed to these Kenyans. Everybody who came to Fungamano got a copy of the document, and for 4 days, people were scrutinizing this document and saying what they like, what they don't like, what requires constitutional, legal, institutional, and policy. We basically came up with an acronym called CLIP. What is C, constitutional, L, legal, what is institutional, what is policy.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, Kenyans told us, this is what we need, there is this office, make these changes in this office. We are hoping that as we move forward, and we are of course in touch with the steering committee, and we are telling them what we think is not ongoing, rather going on well, because this country is ours, and we cannot sit back and look at politicians, a few people, because Michael, muko wangapi bungeni? They're not even up to 600.
All right.
You know?
Thank you.
They will not mislead this country
that takes us
under
back.
our watch,
have
you
no
know?
intention of
Yeah,
that-
it's not possible.
That takes us back to where we are supposed to be, and that's the cabinet reshuffle. Honorable
And the correct
Sholei.
methodology.
Yes, and the correct methodology. Honorable Sholei, what is your expectation of this cabinet now that you're happy with the president? There are those who are complaining. For instance, if you take the sports docket, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, there are those who felt that that was not the right fit for her and would have expected at this point in time, maybe that would have been changed over. But what is your your expectation of the cabinet right now?
You see, I think what I'm expecting the cabinet to do is for each of them to completely focus on their jobs. Because we have a danger in Kenya that when somebody is appointed minister, all they are interested in is the perks, you know, the cars and the chase car and the bodyguard and so on. But they are not concerned about the obligation they have and the work that they need to do. So if each ministry committed to do their work, it will work. And let me tell you something. There's nothing like saying, okay, yes, Ambassador Amina is a career diplomat, but it doesn't say that she can't perform at the Ministry of Sports. Because remember, the cabinet secretary is only just one person. The country has an entire machinery and bureaucracy of civil servants who've worked in those dockets for maybe 30 to 20 years. So you're just providing the leadership, ensuring that things are working. And what do you do when you go to a place? You have constant meetings. You set up performance indicators and say, we want to achieve this by this time. Put time frames. It will work. Same thing the president does when he meets his cabinet. He's supposed to be saying, this is what I want to see. And that is why we shouldn't be running with words and saying we've created 850 jobs. That is not an answer. Tell me where those jobs are and the nature of those jobs and how it has spurred the economy and how they are spread out in every county. So it is possible if people recommitted to do their job. Believe me. When you talk about Vision 20, we had the Vision 2030. I will tell you that Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, I started a meeting with their top officials, and they said they were relooking at their economy and how they have what they call Vision 2020. Do you know they've achieved 92%, and they were annoyed with themselves. They were tearing themselves down that they have missed by 8%. In Kenya, we think we are so happy because we've been talking about Vision 2030 and we have done nothing. So we should be people with a spirit of excellence. That is what we are lacking in this country. We have become mediocre. Yet Kenyans are one of the most intelligent. When I look at Kenya's human resource base, are extremely intelligent. We can do it. We just don't want to repurpose. Even and it comes from even the smallest position. When you go to a place and you find a police officer, he's busy, he stopped the entire traffic because he's scolding one person. He's not thinking, my job is to clear the traffic. So we have to stop being mediocre in the way we perform our jobs. You go to a desk at the public service, people are talking on the phone, and they are not, unless you tell them you're going to give them some money, they are not interested in speaking to you. So they frustrate you so that you can pay them. Those are the small things that we need to change.
Right,
last one, Matiang'i said that we'll be getting passports
and IDs and birth certificates
in a day. I thought that was supposed to be the case. From the time we started the electronic versions, the number of human beings that are full in Nyayo House and all immigration offices, you should be able to do it in 24 hours. That is not news. Yes? The same way, our people cannot get birth certificates. I know people who have waited for 6 months. My housekeeper in my own home has not been able to get birth certificates for her child. And eventually she tells me, give me some money because I'll go and pay the guy at the place. And I told her, don't worry. I am going to go to Western Kenya myself and storm into that office and I'll get that birth certificate in one day. I have gone to an office for birth certificates in Kapsoya in Uasin Gishu County. And when I reached there, the officer told me that one of my constituents could not get a birth certificate because the documents have not been printed by government printer. I picked the phone and I called the government printer. And they said, no, they have
all right.
stock. So those are the things that we need to be changing to make the country work.
I guess
that is the job of ministers.
The CS saying that they're going to do that is a good thing, that he has declared that we can hold him to account. Javas.
We need to talk tough and act tough in government offices. Act tough. After talking tough, act tough. Because like I'm told as a practicing Christian that our mouth carries life. So after talking, let us work. Because we do not suffer from insufficiency of patriotism and love in this country. If we love our country enough, we can do this. And that's why, for example, I was disappointed when a former CS talked about snapping locusts, etc. Because that invasion already, of course, that early warning was given, and we did nothing about it. So that ministry should be castigated. But you see, when you look at Article 43, Article 1, Part F of the Constitution on matters of freedom from hunger, food security, and survival, and you look at Article 26 on the right to life, and the human dignity in Article 28 of the Constitution, tells you that if we look at the issue of food security and sufficiency through the Big Four agenda, and look at our obligations under Article 2 sub-Article 6 of the Constitution, those international obligations to which Kenya must play a part, then we realize one thing, that we have got so much to do, even when you look at just trying to achieve economic and sociocultural aspirations in this country, whether it's through Vision 2030 or not. If we love this country enough and say that, you know, away with corruption, away with civil servants who are not performing, away with politicians who want to talk too much and do so little, then we shall be reminded, as I'm reminded of Martin Luther King Jr., when he quite eloquently sang the words of Smith, "My country it is of thee, sweet country of love, where our fathers died and pilgrims pride." So if we can remember this and love our country to the core and say that, Mr. President, when you make all these right decisions, when you organize your cabinet to work in the interest of gender parity, in the interest of economic growth, in the interest of healthcare, to have us achieve, for example, the issue of maternal health, because it still pains me that close to 1 in every 5 children still dies before the age of 1 in this country across the rural communities, that still you can have one, for example, ambulance serving even 1 ward or 2 wards, then tells you that we've got so much work to do still.
All right.
So I commend the president in the organization of cabinet, and I would like to ask him to continue cracking the whip, work harder. This country can be good and better.
All right, I'll need a round of your closing comments one by one. I'll start with you, Honorable Danita Gati. We've all agreed, or you've all agreed, that the president has done his part. What would you say to the cabinet secretaries now that have been given this task of ensuring that they deliver on behalf of Jubilee, or for the country, rather?
Yeah. The cabinet secretary have no other role. They have to perform. I think for me, they have to perform. It is a cabinet that everybody is happy about. It is representative of this country. It has the best women and men of this country. I want them to work. The only thing I would have suggested, because I looked at the entire list, because a cabinet secretary takes care of one. It's just one. We have 21 currently. And then when you break down to the PSS, you see the PSS, you realize that we now have a PS for youth, and then we have a PS for gender. Where we got it wrong was a PS for disability affairs. Because we have gender affairs, we have youth affairs. Where is disability affairs? I would have really felt nice, because we have 6.5 million Kenyans who have disability in this country, from Western Gishu to Isibane, where I come from. What if you see small things that we are talking about inclusivity, and then you somehow miss. When you're talking about special interest groups in this country, we are talking about the SIGs in short. We are talking about youth, we are talking about women, we are talking about persons with disability. And you cannot create now, you're now creating those departments, and you are leaving persons with disability. I'm extremely passionate about persons with disabilities. We need to be very, very serious. Again, now, what I want to say simply is that personally, and I know Kenyans support the president, we want to support the president to be able to leave a legacy in this country that our children will be proud of. We have to support him, and we have to join hands together. We are currently in the BBI, and we will have to support BBI, because BBI addresses these challenges that we have. We will have to support BBI. All
right, Kevin Osindo, your closing remarks.
It is required of His Excellency the President that he issues what is called the State of the Nation address every year, and indeed so is with county governments, that governors issue what is called the State of County address. I am hoping that the President will do 2 things. 1, open cabinet meetings, invite people to your office at Harambee House, invite Kenyans to State House to come and listen to how cabinet discussions are done on what is really relevant to Kenyans, and even push it further and demand for State of the Ministry addresses from all the 21 CSS, because some of those people, if you went out there and asked Kenyans, for example, labor, who is in charge of labor, they might not know yet labor and employment is very critical and key to many Kenyans. Lastly is that it is important that the president, with the same spirit and gusto and oomph, he takes charge of this country. Because if we continue like this, I don't think we will do a lot of, we'll spend much time developing our economies and ensuring that amicable and conducive environments are created for young people to have jobs. I want to ask the president to consider sitting with his deputy, and these seemingly unfavorable narratives that are cropping either from media or from their handlers, and what we are seeing, the spirit of 2013 that spirit where we would see them walking together and even walking into a shop and buying the same suit color and the same shoe color and the same color of socks, and I don't know whether any other thing which was the same.
Even the tie.
Even ties. That spirit is what Kenya needs now, because they don't have time, by the way. We are moving to the end of his term, and Kenyans will ask him at the end of this, what did you
achieve? Honorable Sholei, your closing
Yes,
remarks.
I think I would appeal to the new cabinet secretaries and those who have been reassigned and those who serve in government, including the head of state and the deputy. If you look at it, our constitution, people forget, when they hold that Bible and say that they will uphold, defend, and protect the Constitution, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. Because if you talk about Article 54 deals with people with disabilities, very comprehensive. Article 55 talks about youth. Article 56 talks about minorities and marginalized groups. Article 57 talks about older people in our society. There's an article on labor relations. There's an article on social economic rights. If you look at the big four, is anchored in Article 43. Accessible housing, it talks about food security and freedom from hunger, acceptable quality, clean water. So actually our constitution is so comprehensive. If these people just took seriously, when they take the oath of office and follow this constitution, it has all the answers. We don't even need BBI.
Okay.
Because inclusivity is already in this. So they should just do their job and focus on implementing this constitution.
If they implemented that,
And then there will be no problems in Kenya.
Javas Bigambo, you get the last word.
Thank you. You see, Kevin talked about spirits. Personally, I fear spirits. So, but I would say that
good spirits.
it is important for us to appreciate the African adage that when you stay close to a river, you should not die of thirst. When we have a government that is keen to work and with a constitutional framework that can help that work, when we also apprise ourselves and acquaint, in fact, every public servant should, with Article 232 of the Constitution on the values and ethics of public service, when we realize that we are telling our pupils and students that we want to use competency-based curriculum, yet we as leaders are not competent, then we are creating gaps in terms of taking our nation forward. So, Mr. President, kudos to what you've done, but to every public servant and every cabinet secretary and the CAS who've been given mandate, let us find the true north. That true north is in the rule of law, public service, integrity, ethics, and leadership.
Thank you very much. Javas Bigambo, who is a political consultant. We also have had Honorable Danita Gatti, who's a nominated member of parliament, Kevin Osido, Director, County Governance Watch, and last but not least, Honorable Gladys Boss-Sholei, who's the woman rep for Uasin Gishu County. Thank you for joining us this morning on